Welcome back, everybody. Thursday, August 10th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report. Here to talk to you about the latest news from Ukraine. Lots of news today. Wild. I mean, I'm just surprised because I did the list and I was like, I've got like 14 topics. So we're going to go a little long, but so what else is new? All right, let me get TikTok rolling here. TikTok, hang on. Live. Boom. All right, introduce yourselves. Say where you're from, if you would, while we're waiting. And as always, I will wait probably about 2 minutes to start the show so people can join us on TikTok and YouTube and other services while we are waiting. So hello all. There we go. But yeah, lots of just lots of news today. So for whatever reason, interesting news too. Anyway, so I'm gonna grab a picture to show you all while I'm sitting here waiting. Hello guys, welcome TikTokers. Everybody else as well. I'm looking here for my news. Not too much. What's up with you, Bonkster? And as always, we wait a couple minutes, just about 2 minutes, for folks to maybe introduce yourselves while we wait for people to sign on. Let me look here. I'm just doing a last little look at the news here. Interesting. Yep, hang on. There's a picture I'm looking for. Come on, guys. Anyway, welcome all. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I saw that out of the corner of my eye. I'm looking for a photo here to show. Here we go. It's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one. Okay, I'll show you this photo. I was just going to show you guys a photo or two when we start the show. I have not seen the photos of the ships Ukraine hit. No. Thank you, Arifa and John. What's the deal with them bonkers? What do they show? I know that I was going to talk about it today. The Navy ship, the landing ship that Ukraine hit, looks like it can't be fixed. Even the Russians themselves are admitting, but I didn't see photos or anything. I also heard the SIG might be in trouble, which is the cargo ship the Ukrainians hit too. There's just lots of news today. Yeah, that's a ton of news. All right, I think that's pretty good. I was looking for a photo to show you guys once I get rolling here. I think the photo I've got is good enough. Yeah, photos I've got good enough. Hey, Northwest Territories. Okay, I'm always having to guess what people's abbreviations are. Thank you, B. Smith, for their countries. It's like we all know our own abbreviations, but I don't know anything else's. That's good enough. All right, guys, welcome. I guess I'll get rolling. Hey, y'all, I am John Aravosis. Welcome. Thank you, Carl. Very nice of you to say that on YouTube. I am John Aravosis. Welcome, everybody, for the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, on all these different networks, to talk to you about the latest news from Ukraine. The way the show works is I will go through the news. I typically don't take questions until the second half of the show, but super chat questions on YouTube, since people pay for them and they're supporting my work, I will always get to those immediately. Otherwise, we do questions on the second half of the show. The way you can help my work, as I said, is buying the super chat questions. Super stickers are another way. You find both of those through the little dollar sign at the bottom of YouTube. You also can become a YouTube subscriber, which you'll notice Carlos and Brendy and Susan, among others, have got their names in green on YouTube. That's because they're monthly subscribers. You can do that via the dollar sign, Greg too, via the dollar sign at the bottom of the screen. Click it. You'll see super chat, super stickers, and membership. Click the membership, and it'll give you some options. Thank you for the crown there. Who was that? Was it Grace for the crown? Thank you, and Eva for the pizza. For you guys on TikTok, the way you can support my work, which I would very much appreciate, is by buying the wonderful gifts on TikTok. I will always try to do a shout out for the bigger gifts. The little gifts are hard because there's 10,000 likes and like 1,000 roses too. So it's hard. I apologize for those. Thank you, Adam. That's an example. So let me get rolling, guys. So it's day 532 of Vladimir Putin's special military operation in Ukraine, the 3-day operation, day 532 of the 3-day operation. Huge fire right now outside of Moscow. Another huge fire. So you remember last night, thank you, Mark, for the duck, Aflac. You remember last night the Ukrainians hit a factory. Thank you, Kanowski, outside of Moscow, like right outside of Moscow. The Russians are trying to claim, let me step back. Thank you, Elizabeth. We don't know what happened at the factory outside of Moscow. What we do know is a factory blew up spectacularly. I mean, huge. I showed you guys yesterday. I'm gonna see if I've got it handy. I'm going to show you again. The picture of the fireball is something to behold. It is, I mean, it was here you go. This was a spectacular explosion. Look at this. I mean, it looks like a nuclear explosion. Look at that. It's not, but look at that thing. Show you guys again, too. I mean, look at that photo. It's like something out of a Pulitzer. So this was last night's, explosion outside of Moscow. Tonight outside of Moscow, and I'm talking right outside of Moscow, one of the suburbs, a warehouse exploded. It is on super fire. It is, let me show you that picture. So the warehouse outside of Moscow right now, and just to give you a sense, like I said, it's a pretty good fire. I mean, look at that in the distance. That's a pretty good fire. So you guys can see, this is not just like a drone caused a little fire somewhere. That's huge. Now, we don't know what's going on. Last night's, the Russians are now trying to claim, oh, it was a fireworks factory and the fireworks caught fire. Well, what I am told, well, first of all, we all knew it was an optical plant. It wasn't a fireworks factory. What I was told yesterday was, in fact, the plant was being used to prepare new optical pieces to upgrade the Russian T-72 tank. And it also appears that the factory was somehow involved in creating parts for artillery shells for Russian artillery. So that thing, super fire. Again, especially 2 nights in a row, it's the Ukrainians. I mean, we assumed last night was the Ukrainians. 2 huge explosions at 2 huge factories, warehouses, whatever. Thank you, Marcy. Right outside in the Moscow suburbs, 2 nights in a row, it's the Ukrainians. Thank you, Adventures. Now, the second one, we have no information on. All we know is they're calling it a warehouse. We don't know what it is. We don't know what caused the fire. As always, sure, it's possible that this was some kind of an accident or something. I don't think so. What is interesting to me is Ukraine has very interestingly revved up its counterattacks, meaning clearly the counteroffensive is going slowly, right? The actual attacks in southern Ukraine. But at the same time, clearly Ukraine, now very smart, Ukraine had other irons in the fire, so to speak. Now, I was thinking, thank you, Martin, because Ukraine is sort of famous for when they're doing this, then they're doing this too. They're always sort of tricking the Russians on what they're doing. I was thinking Ukraine was going to be doing like another attack in Ukraine when they were, thank you, Ellie. In other words, the sleight of hand Ukraine was going to do, I thought they would attack part of Ukraine and then get the other part of Ukraine they were going to attack to get their land back. Thank you, Addie. But in fact, it looks like what Ukraine had prepared were a series of sensational attacks within Russia, and now they're doing it. Now, they also reportedly fired 2 more drones or flew 2 more drones at Moscow last night. The Russians say they were shot down. The same thing happened last night. The same thing happened the night before. We've now had several nights in a row of the Ukrainians trying to fly drones into Moscow. And by the way, the drone flights into Moscow could have been a diversion for the explosion that was about to happen at the factory, right? I mean, who knows what's going on in these guys' heads? Very interesting. Now, with regards to the boat, so we know that Ukraine attacked 2 Russian ships in the last week. Thank you, Janice. Remember, I don't even know. It's funny. I'm losing track of the days here. Maybe a week ago or last weekend, they attacked actually, it was last Friday. I think last Friday they attacked the Russian warship first, the landing ship. Thank you, Jean-Francois, and then they attacked the what do you call it? The ship that carries aviation fuel. Which is a private ship, but it's got a lot of military contracts, and it's been sanctioned by the U.S. among others for bringing aviation fuel to Syria. They attacked that ship too. That's called the SIG. Well, today we heard a Russian defense intelligence official, a tanker. Thank you, Brian. And the word was like slipping my head as I was talking. Thank you. Today we heard from a Russian defense intelligence official saying that the military boat, the landing ship, it's going to be problematic to repair it. So that boat could be toast. I also heard somebody saying that the SIG, which is the tanker, may also be toast as well. Don't have much on that. I just sort of heard somebody talking about it. Now, this was, not that the Russians didn't have some fun today too. There was a massive Russian drone strike against a civilian oil depot in Ukraine, blowing it up in Western Ukraine. That's bad. There was also a fire. I'm just mentioning this randomly. There was a fire at a French grain facility by a port in France in the last day too. It just seemed a little suspicious. It's totally possible. Thank you, Hedge. It's totally possible that, it just is a fire at a grain plant, because I suspect that grain is probably pretty flammable, especially with powder in the air and everything else. Nonetheless, Russia has been known to blow things up before. They reportedly, I think they didn't have proof, but they clearly must have done it, that they blew up weapons in the Czech Republic over the last 10 years that were going to be going to Ukraine. So I don't know. The French thing is interesting. Just pay attention to it. Maybe nothing, maybe something. Other news, Kupiansk. So Russia is having some success in northern Ukraine. We know how let me pull this up. Ukrainian counteroffensive is in the south, right? The majority of the counteroffensive is happening here. Zaporizhia, Donetsk, so around here. There's also some fighting going on around here. This is where in the last couple of days, we heard that the Ukrainians had come across the river, and it was sort of interesting because it wasn't sure if it was a small attack, if it was a precursor to a big attack. But we do know the Ukrainians came across the river here. But this is the big counteroffensive, also fighting in Bakhmut, of course. And up here, Kupiansk and the area. The Russians have been making a big push up here. They put over 100,000 men. I saw one estimate saying even 150,000, huge number of tanks, several hundred tanks as well. Thank you, Shanna. And the Russians are having some success in the north. They've been taking back some villages. The town of Kupiansk, which Ukraine liberated last fall, I think it was, there is suspense. You did it. Except you've got Kofi too, remember? So if you want to cancel Kofi, I wouldn't be offended. But you did pull it off. Thank you. Thank you, Kanowski. Remember, on your Discord, you need to go into your settings and link your YouTube account to Discord. If you don't know how, talk to me later on Discord, and I'll tell you how. So Kupiansk in the north, the Ukrainians have called. Thank you, Kanowski. Have called for the town of Kupiansk and the area to be evacuated, mandatory evacuation, because they're concerned about the Russian advances. I did see, putting the light a little brighter here, I did see some analysis saying it's not clear yet if Kupiansk itself is really threatened. Nonetheless, the Russians are making advances in the area. Thank you, Nate, for the hedgehog. Another interesting, weird story. Fire erupted today at an oil refinery in Belarus, right? Belarus is the country right to the northwest of Ukraine, right up here, run by a dictator, also BFF of Putin. They've been helping Putin in the war. Remember, it was just 5 days ago, I think, that Ukraine said they had intelligence that Russia was going to attack an oil refinery in Belarus and try to blame it on Ukraine. And all we know is that just happened. Now, we don't know if the Russians did it, but it's awfully interesting that Ukraine predicted 5 days ago a Belarusian oil refinery was going to go up in flames, and it just did. Thank you, Nate. No more on that. Just one of those stories, again, to sort of keep an eye on. President Biden today asked Congress for $40 billion in additional spending, including $24 billion for Ukrainian assistance. Basically, the way U.S. assistance works, probably in other countries as well, the Biden has to get Congress to provide the money, and then Biden can decide how much goes, where, but Congress gives sort of the general overview. Thank you, Nate, for that. Well, Biden pretty much is reaching the end of the money that he's got. New fiscal year starts in October 1st. Thank you, Eddie. And the U.S. needs more money if we're going to be giving Ukraine more money. Now, sorry about that. If we're going to be giving Ukraine more money. Now, in terms of what specifically Biden's requested Congress to put forth, thank you, Martin, for the seal. $24 billion for Ukraine. That includes $13 billion in security assistance and $7.3 billion for economic and humanitarian assistance. If that amount is provided, it would bring U.S. total assistance to around $70 billion. Now, what's interesting, because, you hear the sort of the MAGA crowd, some, maybe not all of them, but Trump certainly, and a lot of the MAGA types, thank you, Marcy, certainly the MAGA types in Congress, you absolutely hear this from, that are saying, we're spending too much money, we shouldn't spend it. Comparison. Let's pretend Congress even puts forth this money, $70 billion, okay? That's less than 1/10 of the U.S. defense budget in 1 year. Okay. So the defense budget next year is expected to be 800 and some billion dollars with a B. More importantly, I looked this up because I wanted to confirm. How much, I'm going to ask you guys, how much money do you think the US spent? We were in Iraq for almost 20 years, okay? How much do you think we spent per month on the invasion of Iraq or the occupation or whatever you want to call it, but our military operations in Iraq? How much, and we were there for 20 years. How much a month do you think the US spent? Just give me like some numbers on the screen of what you guys think. I'm curious, sort of the ballpark. Monthly, okay? I'm going to wait a quick second for it to catch up. A lot. Yes. Thank you, Nico. So I only know it by month. Monthly, get this. Monthly was $10 billion with a B. The U.S. spent $10 billion a month on Iraq for 20 years practically. Thank you, Nicola. Okay. Now put that in perspective. Ukraine, if this new money comes through, that would be 2 years of the war in Ukraine would be 70 billion. 2 years of the war in Iraq would be 240 billion. Okay, that's the difference. I mean, in other words, wars do cost a lot of money. We were in Iraq for almost 20 years. We invaded in 2003. You know, we got out a couple years ago. I guess you could say 16, 17 years maybe, if you want to be really accurate of how many years we were there, right? But it was 2003 we got in. So very interesting though, right? Oh, thank you, Marie, for the hands and hearts. So it's the point is, it's not to say that that's not a lot of money, 70 billion, but we kind of play games because whenever we do military operations, we spend a ton of money. But suddenly with this military operation, some people who always support military operations are now saying it costs too much money, Yeah. Now, the question is, will Republicans approve this? That's tough. Oh, I've got to pull up my Charlie's Angels thing. Angel just got its wings. Angel got its wings. Angel got its wings. Goodbye, Angel. Goodbye, Angel. There we go. Angel just got its wings. So very interesting. Very interesting. Whether the Republicans are going to agree. Here's the deal. Biden's asking for $24 billion. The U.S. Senate is controlled by Democrats. The U.S. House of Representatives is controlled by Republicans. Both bodies have to approve the spending bill in order for it to become law, in order for Biden to have the money available. The Republicans, there's a couple of problems. One, there is a strong MAGA contingent, a Trump contingent, and the Trump contingent is very anti-Ukraine, okay? The other issue is the Republican majority in the House is like a majority of 4 seats. That's it, 4 seats. Imagine, basically, and we're talking, their majority is, God, what is it, 222? I'm trying to think exactly. Probably 222 Republicans, I'm going to guess, more or less. They've only got 4 seats to spare. If they lose those 4 votes, they can't get stuff passed, right? Well, therefore, the MAGA guys that have got to be, 30 of them probably, at least, if not more, they've got more than enough votes to scuttle anything. So, and by the way, it's not just a matter of the money. They keep threatening to basically knock off their leader. So the Speaker of the House is the top, what's funny, I was going to say the majority leader, but we actually have a different term for majority leader. The party that controls the House of Representatives, their top person is called the Speaker. That's just the way it works. Okay. The Speaker of the House gets picked, though, by its own majority people. So the Republicans all vote on who the Speaker is. Well, the guy that has the job is got such a tenuous position that he's really afraid of pissing off anybody, because anybody can bring him down, because again, they don't have that many votes. Thank you, Danielle. In any case, so the question becomes, would they even approve this extra money? Doubtful. If they were to approve it, they would demand massive spending cuts from the Democrats, but they wouldn't be spending cuts in defense. They would be spending cuts all in domestic priorities that Democrats like and Republicans, generically, Republicans aren't as favorable of, meaning a lot of it would be social spending and things like that. There is no way that we would be able to cut the budget, I think, for the amount the Republicans are going to want. So it's going to be very interesting. And actually, one other thing, we are heading into an election year. The election is, thank you, Elizabeth. The election is November of 2024 for the presidency. Now, in most countries, that's far off. In America, it's not. We already have election news all the time on our televisions. Our election season, unfortunately, for the presidency is 2 years long. It's crazy. So you're going to have House Republicans be in a position where they're going to demand spending cuts, and Democrats are going to say, okay, thank you, Daryl, thank you, Lori, are going to say, okay, what do you want cut? And Republicans are going to talk about what they want cut, and then Democrats are going to run on it for the presidency, but also for Congress, and say, look what they want to cut. So it's a danger for Republicans too. Thank you, Nate. My bottom line here is I don't know what's going to happen in terms of trying to get more money for Ukraine. I think it's going to be very difficult. Let's see. Hopefully Republicans aren't just going to cut them off, but let's see. All right, I got a lot more news here. Actually, what's funny is a lot of the news stories, I've got a lot of news stories, but a lot of them are quick little stories. So, hopefully, actually, one other point really quick. Now, okay, I will say, I used to work in the United States Senate. I understand much better how the United States Senate works than the United States House of Representatives. Each body's rules are very different. So I do not understand how the House works. I will tell you that it is possible that a bunch of Democrats would certainly support funding Ukraine. And it's possible that if you get 10, say 15 Republicans to cross over and support aid to Ukraine, that might be enough to pass it. But will they? I mean, Republicans tend to be very good at holding together as a bloc, but that's one possibility. It's much more complicated than that, but Democrats will certainly be looking at the possibility of seeing, could they get some Republicans to break away? Thank you, too, Gus. Let me do a quick pitch for the subscriptions because it's another way, as I said, of you guys supporting my work. We've already talked about YouTube. A great way to support my work with YouTube is to become a YouTube subscriber. It's a monthly subscriber. You pay a certain amount per month, and a little bit goes to YouTube. A lot of it goes to me. You get the cute little green names. You see Suspense and Greg and others, Susan and Carlos and everybody. There's Carlos. There you go. Other folks with the name, that means that they are monthly supporters. It gives you access to the VIP section of my Discord community, which is the weekend show that I do every Saturday, except this Saturday I'm traveling, so it's not every Saturday. It's most Saturdays. Thank you, Martin and Kat, for the gifts on YouTube. And it gives you access to the VIP auctions on our auction sites, on the Discord as well. So check it out. For you all, you guys can do a number of different things on TikTok. You can become a TikTok subscriber via TikTok. The only problem with that is TikTok is working to fix it. There's a little glitch where it doesn't communicate with my Discord community, so your credentials will not pass over. You won't be a VIP on my Discord. If you want to be a VIP on my Discord, you guys would want to sign up for Ko-fi. Now, Ko-fi is something any of you guys can sign up with. It would give you VIP privileges on my Discord. Thank you, Kanausi. It would give you access to our weekend show that I do on Saturdays, most Saturdays, not this one, via TikTok and Discord again. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Ko-fi. So Ko-fi is very easy to access. The web address is ko-fi.com/Aravosis, my last name. Much easier. Just go to aravosis.com, which is my last name, and it'll give you all of my links. Ko-fi's at the top. Or for you guys on TikTok, go to my profile on TikTok. Thank you, Marie. Click the Linktree link. And the very first thing that comes up at the top is Ko-fi. You can find it there. You guys have it at the bottom of the screen. But again, if you consider doing it, I'd appreciate it because it's very helpful to be able to basically get the monthly donations in. It makes my work much easier for the long term because I do this full time and I'm not making money anywhere else. I'm able to do this by you guys providing gifts. So thank you. And do keep the gifts coming on TikTok. So very interesting interview today by the president of Poland, Duda, with the Washington Post. Now, one thing he was asked about was, I believe, whether Ukraine has enough weapons. Okay, listen to this. Does Ukraine, he answers, does Ukraine have enough? He says, does Ukraine have enough weapons to change the balance of the war and get the upper hand? And the answer is probably no. they probably do not have enough weapons. And we know this by the fact that they're not currently able to carry out a very decisive counteroffensive against the Russian military. To make a long story short, they need more assistance. Just thought that was very interesting. Particularly interesting that somebody is basically going public and saying this, right? I mean, it's the kind of thing where I say it, but you don't see a lot of the NATO allies saying, not only, look, we basically shortchanged Ukraine, we haven't given them enough, but to acknowledge we haven't given them enough, right? This very interesting. Oh, that's cute. That's a cute little Gooby. I don't even know what to call your name. That's funny. I saw that, and at first I was thinking you were Russian, and then I went, oh, ZSU. We like ZSU. So excellent. Thank you for that. That's a saying like long live or glory to the Ukrainian military is what that post means. Unless I'm reading my Ukrainian wrong. But anyway, very interesting from him. Other thing with Poland is the Polish defense minister said today that 10,000 Polish troops. Okay, good. I thought so. I always worry whether you guys are Russians when I see Cyrillic on the page, but I was like, okay, Slava ZSU. Okay, that's a good one. Polish defense minister said today that Poland is moving 10,000 troops, 10,000 soldiers to the border with Belarus to basically ensure that the Belarusians or the Wagner group doesn't play any games. Very interesting. This is a weird story, especially because we've now got the news. And again, there hasn't been any public news about this. We don't really know what's going on with with Belarus and the Wagner group, the Wagner mercenary group. They're the guys that tried to overthrow Putin. Part of the deal was that their leader, Prigozhin, would move to Belarus, country right next to Russia, right northwest of Ukraine. And a lot of his men would come there with him. Well, 4,000 or so of his men did move there with him, and they started causing trouble. But I mean, they started causing trouble for Poland, right? They started doing military exercises on the border of Poland to try to scare them. They were firing live ammunition from their tanks, which was interesting, right? To try to be obnoxious to Poland. Well, now the story, what we are hearing, we still don't know if this is true, but the scuttlebutt is what is being discussed is whether whether the Wagner group whether the Wagner group said, screw you to Belarus. It's not clear. So some of the stories are saying that Belarus has kind of had it with the Wagner group and they're kicking out the Wagner group. Other stories are suggesting it's the Wagner group that may be upset because allegedly Putin is not paying them anymore, right? They're soldiers for hire. Somebody's got to pay their salaries, right? They've got to eat. They've got to give money to their family back home. So supposedly Putin's not paying their salaries. Supposedly, they thought that if they're in Belarus, the Belarusian government, Lukashenko, would pay their salaries. Well, reportedly, he's not. So the scuttlebutt is, we don't know if this is true, but the rumor is that they're basically, the Wagner guy said, well, screw it. Why do I need to live? I'm a Russian. Why do I need to go live in Belarus if I'm not even getting paid, right? I mean, there's no point to even be here. So a number of them supposedly are going to go to Africa, possibly to Mali, I think. A number of them are going back into Russia, reportedly. That's the most interesting story because Putin doesn't want these guys back in Russia. These guys tried to overthrow Putin's government. The reason he wanted them in Belarus, I think, was to have them like close enough he could keep an eye on them, but they weren't in Russia, so they weren't posing a danger. If they're back in Russia, they pose a danger again to Putin. Just very interesting. Just very interesting. Oh, somebody, the word is scuttlebutt, Jens. I'm going to give this scuttlebutt. How do you spell scuttlebutt? I think that's how you spell scuttlebutt. I'm not sure. Yeah, try that. Google it and see. I probably got it close to the right spelling. Scuttlebutt. It's a good word in English. Don't know what it's from. Sorry. Jens was asking what, he goes, scuttlebutt? What is scuttlebutt? Anyway, oh, yeah. So the grain deal. So weird news from the grain deal. So you know how the Russians refused to basically let Ukrainians export their grain and out of the Black Sea. So Ukrainian ports here, Odessa and other ports here, they were exporting their grain, a lot of grain. I mean, a huge amount of grain to the rest of the world. And Putin's been threatening to blow up the ships, basically. So the commercial ships aren't willing to go to Ukraine to pick up the grain. Well, Putin, the Ukrainian Navy announced today new temporary routes for civilian vessels moving to or from the Black Sea. The routes will be used for moving grain and agricultural products, said the Ukrainian naval spokesperson. The corridor will be very transparent. We will put cameras on the ships, and there will be a broadcast to show that this is purely a humanitarian mission and has no military purpose. The Ukrainians are up to something. I mean, there's something going on. There's something going on here. I'm not sure who's going to be even comfortable having their ship go into Ukraine, even with cameras. So the idea of the cameras is, if I'm reading this correctly, is that the Russians claim, well, we don't want these boats coming into Ukraine because they could be sending weapons. So Ukraine's saying, no, we'll have cameras on the boats. And the cameras will be running full time, so you'll be able to see if weapons are coming in. Thank you very much, Stephen. Stephen Perry signed up as a new member. Appreciate that. So you'll be able to see. The Ukrainians are kind of calling the Russians bluff. They're calling the Russians bluff on this. It's very interesting. I think Ukraine is doing this knowing that most ships will still not be comfortable taking their grain into Ukraine. But if they can get a ship, and frankly, maybe the Ukrainians will get their own ship. If I were the Ukrainians, I'd get your own ship, I'd put your own troops on it, and use that boat to send the grain in and out. And if the Russians blow up that ship, the Ukrainians had the camera on it, as Ukrainians say, totally transparent, so you know there's no weapons. If the Russians blow it up, then the Ukrainians are going to go nuts on commercial traffic going to Russia. My spider sense is going off when I read this story. This is not about Ukraine thinking it truly found a solution for letting ships come into Ukraine. This is about Ukraine setting a precedent so that if Russia attacks, knowing Russia will attack, Ukraine can then turn around and attack Russian commercial shipping. Let's see, guys, but I smell a fox. I think Ukraine's up to something tricky here. Smart, but tricky. Ukraine's National Corruption Prevention Agency, oh, this was interesting, added the world's largest private alcohol company, Bacardi, to the international sponsors of war. Bacardi has refused to pull out of Russia, and continues to do business there since the war broke out. Very interesting. Thank you, Tugas, for the hat and mustache. The Ukraine's deputy defense minister says in an attempt to hide losses, Russia's forces have been burying their dead soldiers in occupied Ukrainian territories instead of transporting the bodies to Russia. Also, there were reports that the Russians are cremating their soldiers, again, rather than bringing them back to Russia. Again, this is not the kind of thing normal militaries do. You bring your troops back. And even if you've got bodies, you bring the bodies back. And then I gave you the Wagner update. Okay, we've got that. I was looking here. Mike did a little Googling and said, during a fire at a warehouse in Odinstovo, this is the suburb of Moscow where I told you a warehouse blew up today, right as we're speaking, actually, that they're still trying to figure out what's going on. Some guy jumped from the second floor. According to preliminary, okay, so no really news on that. Okay, sorry, Mike. I thought maybe it was an update on something we knew what was going on with that. Okay, very interesting. All right, let me show you really quick. I've got some new auction items that are finally up. What we do is every week on our Discord community, Discord's free. It's discord.aravosis.com. But I do have some auctions I do, and the auctions are to benefit Ukraine and to benefit my work. 50% of the money goes to support me because I do this full time, and literally it's my income. So I try to make enough income that I can keep doing this. So far, it's been working. Thank you, Elizabeth. So 50% of the auction money of the auction items we sell, cool stuff from Ukraine, I keep, and the other 50% I chose at the very beginning. We've been doing it to send the money back to Ukraine. We've been doing a lot of humanitarian aid. We've also lately been buying camouflage nets for the military. Well, the latest, I've got about 8 new items up that went up last night. 3 of them I will show you. One, it's kind of cute. People like stickers, so I got stickers. One is Russian warship Go F Yourself stickers because people like them. These are stickers of the stamp, of the famous Ukrainian stamp, which shows a Ukrainian soldier giving the finger, flipping his middle finger to the Russian ship. That's the Russian ship that the Ukrainians ended up sinking. Now, this is 2 things. This is you can see there. This is the Russian ship that on the first day of the war, it goes to Snake Island, Ukraine, and tells the troops, surrender or we're going to blow you up. And the troops on Snake Island respond, Russian warship, go F yourself, right? The famous line. 6 weeks later, the Ukrainians, thank you, JRD, the Ukrainians have developed their own cruise missile on their own, and they shoot the cruise missile at the ship and sink it. And not sink it, cause so much damage. They I don't think they sank it, but they caused so much damage that that ship is gone. I mean, it got towed. It didn't sink though, right, guys? Remind me. I don't think it sank, but it was so right. It didn't sink because all the fire was coming out the side. I remember in port, but it got pulled to port and the ship's gone. I mean, the ship is gone. So that's that ship. Anyway, stickers for that. Second, a very cool, just little what do you call it? Keychain that I got from Ukraine, which I think is really neat too. It's just the Ukrainian trident, which is really nice, but it's a very pretty little keychain. So again, got it from a Ukrainian dealer. I don't think it sank though, the boat. I think the boat was just severely damaged. Maybe it did sink. I don't think so. Google it and see, guys. Google it and see. I don't think so. So a little keychain. And then the final thing I will show again, this beautiful, I call it a brooch, I guess, pendant that one of our wonderful followers, Wild Hunt Corsetry, named Larissa. She wasn't with us last night. I contacted her afterwards, and I was right. Larissa made this beautiful pendant. The cord is 38 inches long, which I think is like 90 centimeters, something like that. So it's a 30 or 36, 35 inches, 17 and a half. Yeah, 35 inches long. But what's neat about this is it is a traditional Ukrainian style because this pendant is a chicken egg. This is a Ukrainian chicken egg, Easter egg, so to speak. You know how the Ukrainians for Easter have had this tradition that goes back pre-Christianity. So like to the 800s, I Googled it the other day, back to like 800 or something AD. The Ukrainians would paint Easter eggs, but they would use the batik technique where they use a very small stylus, very fine, and wax, and they paint the egg in wax and then dip it in dye. And where the wax is, you don't see any ink, right? Well, this is from an egg that her mother had made. Now, her mother, she had shown us pictures before. She's Ukrainian American. Her mother is, an expert at making these eggs. I know, don't drop it. I'm being careful today. Her mother is a super artist, makes these ridiculously gorgeous eggs. Well, this is from an egg her mother made, and she took it and turned it into a pendant. So it's even cooler that it really is a Ukrainian Easter egg pendant. But yes, you definitely don't want to drop it. But very cool. So this is one of our auction items as well. So go check them out. As I said, you can access you can access half the auctions. The public auctions are for everybody. The private auctions are for all of our monthly subscribers, whether it's Ko-fi, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Discord, Twitch. And once TikTok fixes it, the TikTok subscribers, the SNN subscribers, will also have access to the VIP auctions. TikTok is trying to fix it right now. I mean, literally, they're trying to fix it, which is good. They contacted me. So thank you. Oh, thanks, Jazz. I haven't seen the solar system before. That's new. Thank you for that. Anyway, I mentioned to the bracelets to Vlad. Yep, I don't know what the answer was, but he knows. He may have. I just don't know. I don't know. James, not sure what the problem is. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I don't know why although you posted a comment right there. I'm looking at it right now. So it did work. All right, guys, let's do Q&A. So questions, topics, etc. Feel free to jump in. And Jim Alt, thank you for the super sticker. Very generous of you. Go for it. What do you want to talk about? And please do keep the gifts coming. TikTok, love the TikTok gifts. TikTok gifts are my salary. So thank you. Any questions, guys? You've all disappeared on. Oh, actually, TikTok. There we go. What about Ukrainian flags? I did ask Vlad about Ukrainian flags. Yes. Thank you, Ali, for the hat. Actually, one of the auction items that I mentioned to Vlad, thank you, Flower Lady. I told him about Ukrainian flags, and I said, you know what? It would be really cool if we could get Ukrainian flags that are signed by like a Ukrainian unit, but basically a small group of soldiers. And I said, let's auction off the flag. And then, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Let's auction off the flag. And then we can we can give the proceeds, or the 50% of the proceeds, we could give the proceeds back to the to the unit, right? Gooby, I am in the States. You can contact me. I mean, you can contact me via the Discord is an easy way. I mean, honestly, I always tell people my email is my last name at gmail.com, Aravosis. So you can always do that too if you want. Just look at my last name on the top at Gmail. Or go to the Discord. Just sign up on the Discords for free if you use Discord. But I'm in the States actually. But I've got a friend in Ukraine who we do a lot of stuff with. But anyway, yeah. So Vlad liked the idea, and he's going to talk to some troops to see if he can get them to do it, to basically sign some flags for us. So, and I've been wanting to visit Ukraine. I'm still kind of a little careful about it. I'm not there yet. I really want to go, but I'm a little nervous about going. No problem. Thank you. All right, guys. What else? You're not all questionful today. Usually you guys are. I'm not going to be doing the coffee talk on Saturday only because I'm flying on Saturday. So, you know, what else? Thank you, Timothy, for the gift. What else is going on, guys? It did sync. Okay, so the Moskva did sync. I forgot about that. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking about the Moscow thing. Once the war is over, I'm going to move over to other topics. I mean, whether I do other international stuff, whether I do other American stuff, I don't know. You know? Brandon says, would you agree that this is not just Putin's war, but the Russian people's war as well? I mean, as much as any war is, you know, I mean, Russia's kind of a dictatorship, but at the same time, Russia's had 300 years of kind of dictator, or I don't know about 300. Well, actually, yeah, probably 300 plus. 300 years of kind of dictatorship. At some point, they're a modern country. If they don't rise up, they're responsible for the government they've got, you know? But I mean, but the thing is, I will say that it's kind of a, thank you, Sunshine, for the gift on TikTok. It is an interesting question as to what war do the people own? Like, you know, thank you, Marcy, did the American people own the war in Iraq or the war in Afghanistan? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, right? But it's kind of, it's always the government that gets us into the war, you know? But I do feel like it is clearly not the situation where we see the Russian people going, oh no, don't fight that war. And Putin's going, I'm going to do it anyway. That's not what's happening. You know, that's clearly, so I, at this point, the Russian people are not rising up against their government. I feel like they're responsible for their government. You know, I really do. No update on China. I mean, China went to the big summit that happened this weekend in Saudi Arabia last weekend, the summit about the war, which was good. No real update on it. We're kind of waiting for the next, summit that was already agreed to, but who knows when it's happening, you know, who knows? But yeah, I mean, the Russian people, who the hell knows? I still do feel like they really don't, you know, they don't seem to really speak up very much, you know? Anyway, what else we got, guys? Yeah, we did see, oops. Thank you, Ellie, for the star. Oh, Annie. Hey, Annie. Annie's very generous super chat questions. The HIMARS from Germany, did I hear they're sending? I did not hear anything. Did anybody hear anything about Germany? Maybe not HIMARS, because HIMARS are Americans. Either whether there was an American HIMARS in Germany or whether Germany was sending more multiple launch rocket systems, because the Europeans do have a MLRS, which is similar to a HIMARS. Taurus is the cruise missile, Ellie. Did anybody hear anything about Germany sending anything with MLRSs? Thank you, Brock Smith. Belgium? Is Belgium? No, Germany, we know about Patriots. Germany just sent 2 Patriot launchers. We know about that. Whether Germany is sending cruise missiles, we don't know. There has been still nothing definitive on that yet. Ukraine wants cruise missiles. Germany initially was like, today I saw a report that maybe the Germans are trying to reprogram the cruise missiles so that they can't be fired into Russia or something. Maybe, but that wasn't it wasn't a very credible report. It was just sort of a rumor that was out there. But yes, we know they're sending the Patriot launchers. So I've seen nothing about MLRS. And actually, anybody see anything? But certainly not HIMARS. They would have had to have the American HIMARS. So no. Nothing that I wonder, did you see it somewhere? Obviously. Maybe it was the Taurus. Yeah. So the Taurus is the cruise missile the Ukrainians are wanting and the Germans are being pain in the butt about. Yeah. Yeah. Is Cuba getting missiles from Russia? Not that we know. Not that we know. Yep. Thank you for the seal there. Who was that? Heidi. Yeah, James, I don't know. I mean, not sure what to tell you. What else we got, guys? The siege of Crimea. I don't know about the siege of Crimea. I don't. There's really no news on what's been going on in the south. Really, I mean, we know the counteroffensive. Ukraine might have been advancing a little bit, but that's about it. Nothing really new on Crimea. I mean, also Crimea isn't being attacked with troops yet. Crimea, the Ukrainians keep going after with drones or, some missile strikes, probably things like that. But there wasn't really anything new on that. What else, guys? Air launched cruise missiles, yeah, Saudi off the dollar. I don't know. Didn't seem that. Well, I already did the news. Now we're doing the question and answer period. I just spent the last 45 minutes doing the news, Thomas. At the end of the show like this, I then take people's questions if they have questions. But I already did 45 minutes of news. That's why you may have just joined us. That's why you're thinking there's no news. Should the West still worry about Russia escalating the war or more? I just don't know how Russia could escalate the war. I'm not worried about it. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that. I mean, what's Russia going to do? They're not going to use their nukes because we destroy them, I think. What else could they do? They could try to blow up a nuclear plant. If they blow up the nuclear plant, I really do. I think Poland is going to enter the war on its own if they blow up that nuclear plant. Poland and the Baltic countries are going to join the war, I think, if the Russians do that. So I just can't see that happening. I just don't. So I don't. So that's what I mean. Like I don't see how Putin can escalate. I just don't see how he can escalate. I'm just not sure what the escalation is going to be. How do we build support for F-16s? Honestly, we just keep talking about it. I mean, well, again, supposedly the F-16s are coming, but somebody actually, by the way, mentioned the ground-launched gravity. What are they called? The diameter? What are they called? The GLDBMs or something like that? The diameter, the diameter gravity bombs. You guys know you military folks know what I'm talking about. Are they GLDBMs? Something like that? Bottom line is, I saw a military guy talking about them today. They were another promise from the Biden administration. GLSDB. And what are they? Small diameter bomb. That's what it is. Small diameter bomb. Is it ground launched? I don't know what the GL is, though, but they're small diameter bombs. Yep, that's what they are. That basically the U.S. had promised them months ago. Ukraine has still not seen any of them. Ground launched small diameter bomb. There we go. Thanks, Kim. That supposedly Ukraine hasn't seen any of them yet. And the concern is this is another thing that's being slow walked by the White House, that they said they're doing it, but they're not really doing it. And that's my concern about the F-16s. I think it'll be a cold day in hell when we see American F-16s in Ukraine, to be honest. We said yes. I'm not convinced we meant it when we said yes. So how long do you think it will take NATO to put troops in Poland? I mean, there are NATO troops in Poland. There's American troops in Poland. You know what I mean? The question is whether more NATO troops go to Poland. That's another question. I don't know, but I don't know whether anything more direct is whether any additional troops are going. But we've already got troops there, and the U.S., I'm guessing the U.S. must have put troops in Poland because we didn't we move like 20,000 more troops to Europe once the war started? And I would think absolutely some of those had to have gone to Poland. They had to have. I don't want to say for sure. I mean, I know we have troops there. Rotation's due to change in 2 weeks. But Callum, did we not send additional troops to Poland once the war broke out? Not just rotations, but more troops than we had previously? I think we did, right? Updates on Sweden joining NATO? Absolutely nothing. The thing is, okay, Callum says yes. That's what I thought. We added more troops to Poland. In terms of Sweden, remember the Turkish parliament is out of session. Thank you, David, for that, for the gift on TikTok. The Turkish parliament is out of session till October. So August and September, Turkish parliament on vacation, which means Turkey can't even bring the issue up in parliament till October. So nothing's happening till then. Little Wolf says, any recent news about the amount of Leopard 1 and 2 tanks giving to Ukraine? No. My suspicion is a couple things. One, No one's going to tell us publicly how many exactly because we don't want the Russians to know. Two, I will say it's very confusing to know, for example, these recent 50 tanks that the Germans seem to have bought that they're going to, Leopard 1s that they're going to refurbish. Thank you, Nate. And 30 of them are going to go to Ukraine. I still can't find out. I don't know if any of you have. Are those 30 tanks 30 additional Leopard 1 tanks, or are they 30 of the tanks the Germans already promised? Right? In other words, are they part of the number already promised, or are they an additional 30 on top of the number Germany promised? Be nice if there were. But that's what I'm saying, Josh. I don't know. Josh is saying how many estimated tanks are operating in Ukraine. I don't know that we know. Because my suspicion is there's no benefit in saying that publicly. You know what I mean? I hope it's additional, but there's no benefit in saying it publicly. So why the NATO countries need to know, right? But the public, I wouldn't tell people publicly, right? I don't know, but you know what I mean? We suspect they are extra. Okay, I hope they're extra. It'd be pretty cool if they are. Yes, we have troops in Poland. My son just got home from 9 months in Romania, but his next deployment is very likely Poland. Yep, Ryan says, yep. I mean, I knew we had troops in Poland. My thing was I was convinced we had sent additional troops, but I wasn't sure, and Callum said yes. Iran says, do you think the attacks within Russia are the beginning of the escalation you talked about might happen a few days ago? Clearly something's going on, but I mean, I'm saying, I think so. Yes. The Ukrainians, fortunately, because I, like everybody else, get worried about the counteroffensive, right? It's going slowly. It's scary. We want to see more. I mean, I want to see more action, not because I'm bored. I want to see more action because I want to see Ukraine win, right? So it does get scary. What I think we may have misjudged Ukraine on is thinking that the counteroffensive was going to be a number of things that all involved striking at getting the Russians out of Ukraine directly. In other words, it would be striking Russian troops, striking Russian ammunition, striking Russian fuel, this kind of stuff. Well, but then all of a sudden they started going after Russian ships, and we went, oh, that's interesting. Again, right? Going after 2 in one day, the Russian warship and the Russian tanker on Friday. That was interesting, right? And then we said, is that a trend? Maybe it's a trend. Interesting, right? Whether we now see Ukraine going really a lot after ships. The second thing is, because of these, then we see the drone attacks. Clearly, the pace of the drone attacks against Moscow, it's nonstop now. Every day they're going after Moscow. Now, whether they think they can cause damage in Moscow, whether they're simply trying to just freak out the people of Moscow, which is likely, whether the attacks on Moscow are meant as a distraction, which I'm starting to wonder now, because last night, tonight and the night before, we had drones attack Moscow, but then somebody blew up a huge factory last night too. Tonight, we had drones go after Moscow and somebody blew up a warehouse. I say somebody because it had to be somebody. I don't think it's random. So what I think we're now seeing is Ukraine did have, as I said, many irons in the fire. They did have a multi-step approach to the counteroffensive that wasn't just hitting Russian troops and Russian supplies. It was this attack on the shipping, which now let's see if it keeps happening. It was drone strikes on Moscow, which now clearly is every day. And these warehouse or these factory explosions, 2 huge explosions 2 nights in a row. If these keep happening, this could be fascinating in terms of the damage it does to Russia. So I think we are clearly seeing an uptick in these other facets of the counteroffensive that we didn't even know existed. And mind you, these are things Ukraine had to plan in advance. They didn't just yesterday say, hey, let's go blow up that factory, outside of Moscow. No, they planned it for a while. So the question is what else they've got planned. I hope they've got other stuff planned. I certainly hope so. Anyway, what else? What else, guys? Anything else? Beep, beep, beep. Do you think they will lose support over these attacks? Not this right now. Thank you, Trilytic. Now, the Biden administration, seems to be perpetually afraid. I think they've gotten better, but they're still very afraid. Reportedly, they were very upset that Ukraine keeps attacking Moscow with the drones. Thank you, Bonnie. My guess is they're probably not thrilled that Ukraine is blowing up factories outside of Moscow. Mind you, these are the Moscow suburbs. So they're not just blowing up Russian factories, but they're blowing up factories outside of Moscow. Probably not thrilled about that. Now, I was thinking about this today. What gets really interesting too is if the attacks, thank you, Bonnie, if the attacks in Russia that blew up these two factories, a factory yesterday and a warehouse today, assuming they were real, right? They were done by people. They weren't just, mistakes or human error or whatever. Assuming that's real, it's possible these are Ukrainian spies that crossed the border, like a Ukrainian hit team that went and blew it up, right? It's also possible that these are Russian partisans, that these are Russians working with the Ukrainians. They could be those Russian military groups, right? Or something else. What's interesting to me, Callum is saying, I bet partisans. What I was thinking about today is, if these are, Sasha, you got to wait. My dog wants more water. It was raining earlier and the dog got scared, of course. Thank you, Bonnie, for the rose. So when she gets scared, she gets thirstier. So now she wants water. Okay, in a minute, just wait. Here's what I was thinking. Thank you, Louis. If Ukraine is working with these insurgents in Russia, okay, and helping them blow up factories, they are helping create, I don't want to say a terrorist group because that's a little too judgmental. Thank you, Jay. Right? I don't know. So I don't want to use the word terrorist, but they're creating, in essence, a terrorist group. I mean, even though it's not terrorism, right? Well, it's a resistance group, but I think it's more like, the reason I say terrorist is resistance has lots of meanings. Terrorist means, they're blowing things up like factories and things like that, right? They've created a group that blows things up all over Russia. These guys are going to be, it's a guerrilla. Okay, guerrillas is a good thing. It's a guerrilla group inside Russia that blows things up. That group can keep blowing things up long after the war is over, right? You've now created a domestic terror problem for Russia. You created a guerrilla insurgency problem for Russia, which is really interesting as far as it being an ongoing problem even after the war is over, right? So it's another not threat for Putin, but another sort of downside for Putin and what this has caused. It's really interesting, I think. This thing's very interesting. Anyway, well, I mean, who knows? And again, we'll see who it was and everything else, but clearly who they're working with, they know what they're doing. Do you think we're going to see a direct provocation from Belarus, Wagner towards Poland? Maybe. Thank you, Pam. I think clearly Lukashenko in Poland got really cocky having Wagner there. The problem is Poland can wipe him out. Also, Lukashenko thinks Russia will come to his defense. The problem is, I mean, kind of game it out in your head. Lukashenko goes too far. They attack Poland with their helicopters again. They blow something up inside Poland. Thank you, Bonnie. Poland goes ballistic on Belarus. They blow up all the Wagner guys and they blow up a bunch of the Belarusian military facilities. Assuming no Russians are killed, okay? Even if Russians are killed, assuming no Russians are killed, how does Putin respond? Poland is not Russia. I don't care what little friendship treaties they have. Poland is not Russia. If Poland responds by blowing up Belarus and destroying the Belarusian military, Russia's got to decide, do they respond or not? If Russia responds by hitting Poland, he's at war with NATO. Then we've got a whole international war. I don't want to say World War III because that has bad connotations. And by the way, if Russia does something to force NATO to enter the war, Russia's a goner. Russia's having a difficult time beating Ukraine. Russia will be destroyed if NATO goes on the attack against Russia. So if you're Putin, what do you really do if Lukashenko goes too far and basically forces Poland to attack back? Because Poland will destroy Belarus. And I'm not convinced Putin would try to respond in some way, but I'm not convinced Putin's going to respond by attacking Poland directly. I don't think he's got the balls to do it, to be honest, because how can he? Right? Because if he attacks Poland, he declares war on NATO and he loses. He's not stupid. Very interesting. I mean, it's very interesting. Anyway, and I think Putin's shown us anyway. I mean, look what happened when Prigozhin took him on. Putin negotiated. Putin doesn't seem to be in the strongest position right now. Oh, that's interesting. Rumors in France that Ukraine started to using Mirage 2000 fighter jets. That's interesting. Wow. That'd be very interesting. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. I hope so. Fascinating. Also, if they are, I hope they're doing it well. Eric is saying Russia is fighting NATO and has been for a while. I mean, yes and no. Yes and no, though. I mean, I'm somebody who's happy to say, we're a party to this war. Russia's a party. I mean, we're a party to this war. People like to pretend we're not. Of course we are. But we're not at war with Russia. If we're at war with Russia, Russia loses. So, Russia's going to do everything it can. Russia's going to do everything it can to convince you we're about to go to war because they think it's going to scare everybody to stop supporting Ukraine. But Russia will do everything it can to stop us from going to war with Russia because Russia knows it's going to lose if it goes to war with any of the rest of us. That's interesting. Tonio says, what they seem to have created, I assume you're talking about this sort of insurgents group or whatever it is that Ukraine created inside Russia. He says, what they seem to have created is a group like the Dirty Dozen, which is an American movie. What was it about World War II? I always forget. Was Dirty Dozen had to be World War II? What were they blowing up? Something. Remind me. What do you expect them to do? Sit around and eat missiles 24/7? Accept that as their lot in life? Well, and the problem becomes, it reminds me, a friend of mine liked to quote me this Napoleon quote about you can do everything with a sword but sit on it, something like that. And I asked him what he meant, and he said, it kind of means when you've got weapons, you kind of end up wanting to use them after a while. And I mean, if you've trained these people to go and blow things up in Russia because they disagree with the government, it's not like they're going to stop blowing things up because the war is over, because they're blowing things up because they want to overthrow Putin and they want to overthrow the current government, and they and Ukraine have the same goals. But even if the war ends because Ukraine wins or loses, the insurgent group inside Russia is still going to want to blow things up. So it's very interesting, the kind of damage. Yeah. So the Dirty Dozen. Does anybody want to tell me really quick or not? I was going to tell folks what the movie, it was a dam. I just don't remember. Yeah. David's saying maybe it was a dam. German bunkers. I don't remember. But it is an interesting question because, right, you've basically empowered these people. And once you've empowered them, well, not only do you actually, here's a thought too. Even if the war ends and Ukraine loses, that insurgent group is still going to be helped by somebody, right? If the war ends and Ukraine wins, you've still got a benefit for supporting that group. If I were Ukraine in the war, if I won the war, I would still absolutely support these guys. I'd still be like, why not? Why not? Any case, German officers' headquarters. Oh, that's what they went after. I'll have to watch the movie again. I mean, it's been like, I don't think I've seen that movie since I was a kid. Canada playing more of an active role in NATO protection up north. I don't know about that. I'm assuming it's probably the Arctic or something, but I don't know about it. Although all I know about that is because of global warming and everything, the Arctic is opening up now. Things are melting, and it becomes an interesting question as to we need to start paying even more attention to the north because shipping lanes that didn't exist are happening now. Thank you, Pam. Stuff like that. It's interesting. Lots of angels are getting their wings today, but I'm not making it public. Wait, there we go. I always hate it when I'm about to delete a comment and then more comments come flying in. What else is going on, guys? Are tactical nukes on the cards for any such scenario for Russia? I don't think Russia would use them because I still think we enter the war if they use nukes. Okay, Russia uses tactical nukes, and I think Poland enters the war. I really do. I think I'm not convinced about Biden. I really am not. I think Biden threatens a lot. I think Russia uses nukes, and Biden still tries to act really angry, but I'm not convinced what he would do. Poland, on the other hand, and the Baltic countries would say, that's it. That's it. We're entering the war. At the very least, they would, I think, Poland enters and basically puts troops all over Ukraine and says, you do not touch the rest of Ukraine. But you try using another nuke or try attacking anywhere outside of the occupied territories, and you're going to hit our troops, and then you're at war with NATO. But I think at some point Poland is gonna have had enough of this, of sort of the big fear that comes out of, I think, Biden, Macron, and Schultz. I still think it's the French, the Germans, and the Americans are the scaredy cats. They're the chickens in all of this that are kind of constantly causing problems. But, and again, we all do good things occasionally, but I think we're all still, I mean, honestly, Schultz said again today in Germany, he made another comment about, oh, yes, we must continue to support Ukraine, but we must be careful. What did he say? Not to antagonize Russia or something, not to provoke Russia or something. He made some kind of a comment again that was an obvious caveat that he didn't need to say. And by making the caveat, to me, I heard, oh, good, you're still afraid of pissing off Russia. Excellent. And you're afraid of going to war with Russia. That's good to know. If I'm Russia, I'm going, this is good. Let's scare Germany a little bit more, Do you think it's a good thing that Turkey still has connections with Russia while still in NATO? Yeah, but I mean, it can be a good thing. I mean, Turkey isn't exactly abiding by the sanctions, which isn't very good, I mean, but at the same time, oops, sorry. Just saying here. Do we have, are there any mods on Discord, on YouTube today? Just making sure. Anybody on YouTube want to jump over? Folks are saying anybody on TikTok? I'm about to go anyway, but nonetheless. Sorry, scrolling back here for a second. Deep, deep, deep. Okay, yeah, you know what? Yeah, sorry. Bye. Yeah, she's gone. Sorry, I see it now. Yeah. Clearly she was a troll. Yeah, she's gone. Thank you for the hat there, Bradley. Appreciate that. Anyway, guys, Polish troops could probably drive to Moscow in a few hours. Probably. We may not have any mods today. We have a very few YouTube mods because YouTube isn't such a big problem. So it's possible folks couldn't make it today. It's not like I pay people. You know what I mean? I don't expect folks to necessarily show up. And Ashley is back in school, so to speak. Yeah, Amanda, I can't do it right now because I'm live. I can't on my computer. I'm looking at a synthesis of all of the websites. I'm not really looking at YouTube directly. Remind me later, but I think I might just to play safe. Yeah, because I didn't want too many mods, but occasionally I want people as mods for this for a backup, basically. Yeah, Callum says we aren't getting paid. Shh, don't tell him, Callum. Don't tell him. Callum's like, I get paid. No, he doesn't. Oh, no, she was a troll. I mean, she was talking about Jesus and garbage. I mean, not Jesus. I'm fine with Jesus, but she's on a Ukraine cap talking about her father's related to Jesus. There's something a little bit not quite right there. So that was troll. Yeah. I just didn't see what she was saying until you guys mentioned it. TikTok is far worse. TikTok is nonstop Russian trolls. Yeah. Somebody was saying which side's worse. Thank you, Randy. YouTube, we don't get much. Even this on YouTube, I was able to clear it up. I mean, we don't get much on YouTube. It's just easier for me because typically if I'm patrolling the trolls, I like to see either one comment that's really obvious or a couple comments that aren't as obvious. Because once you get 2 or 3 comments in a row, even if one comment you're not quite sure, but the third comment, but it's harder because if I'm doing the show with you guys, I don't have time to sit there and try to read through all of their comments and everything else because then I'm not talking, right? So that's where the mods help on YouTube. On TikTok, there's just too many trolls every day, Now, clearly you cleared them out because they're not there now. Excuse me. They're pretty much not there now. But, but we get a lot of them though. Anyway, I don't mind, Pav. It's not a matter of other points of view. They're trolls. There's a totally different thing. It's not another point of view. It's people who literally come on the site to cause chaos. They're chaos agents. They're not people who disagree. If you disagree, you're not a troll. If you come and you say, look, I actually disagree with the war, but here's why, that's fine. But nobody comes and does that. They come and they say, Biden is this and that, and Ukraine is corrupt, and Zelensky has 1 million houses, and all these lies. They're trolls. That's what I'm saying. There's a difference between troll and disagreement. And if you spend any time in online communities, you'll know what I'm talking about. The trolls are obvious. They're literally chaos agents. I mean, that's the best way to describe them. They're there because they want to just drop bombs in the conversation. I mean, they're not there to discuss. They're there to just drop bombs. And in the case of the Russian ones on TikTok, is YouTube. Although YouTube, we don't get too many. Facebook, I actually get a lot of Russian trolls. They're clearly sent by somebody. And TikTok, we get a ton of Russian trolls, clearly sent every day. Absolutely. Anyway, all right, guys, I think I'll do a quick recap and then we'll call it quits, okay? Let me do the recap of the issues we covered today. I'm not going to do Discord today because we did Discord till 8 o'clock last night, so I'll take a break tonight. It is day 532 of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation in Ukraine. There is a big fire outside of Moscow in the suburb of Odintsovo. Looks like it's a warehouse. Looks like Ukraine blew something up again. You'll recall that last night Ukraine blew up an optical plant that appeared to be providing services to the Russian military. Huge explosion last night as well. Ukraine attacked Moscow again with drones overnight. Not clear if it did any damage. A Russian defense intelligence official said today that it will be problematic to repair the Russian warship that Ukraine attacked last week. A massive Russian drone strike destroyed a civilian oil depot in Ukraine. There was a fire at a grain facility in a French port that might have been, just natural mistake or whatever, but kind of suspicious in view of everything else. Russia made some more advances in the north around the town of Kupiansk. A fire erupted at an oil refinery in Belarus, which was a little suspicious since 5 days ago. The Ukrainians warned that the Belarusians were going to have an oil plant blown up by the Russians who were trying to blame the Americans. And what do you know? Oil plant gets blown up 5 days later. So hard to say, but good. Definitely a possibility the Russians did it. President Biden is asking Congress for another $24 billion for Ukraine. That's going to be a big battle. President Duda of Poland did an interview with the Washington Post. Was very interesting. Okay, see you, James. Have a good night. A very interesting interview where he said that basically Ukraine does not have enough weapons for the counteroffensive and is going to need the, I don't even know what that means. Orange bed. Okay, I don't know what that means, Joe. Sorry, thank you, Jedamam. That Ukraine does not have enough weapons for the counteroffensive, which was very interesting to see a NATO ally say that publicly. Polish defense minister says that they are moving 10,000 soldiers to the Belarusian border because of threats from the Belarusian military, along with the Wagner Group. Ukraine's naval forces announced temporary routes for civilian vessels to move grain in and out of Ukraine. I think it's a plot from Zelensky to basically test the Russians. And if the Russians blow it up, Ukraine's going to go after all the Russian shipping. Let's see. But I think Ukraine's National Corruption Agency, Prevention Agency says, that Bacardi liquor is still doing business in Russia and refuses to cut back. Russian forces are burying their dead in Ukraine and cremating them and refusing to bring them back to Russia. And finally, Wagner update. We still don't know what's going on with Wagner in Belarus. It is possible that they're leaving because the Belarusians won't pay them and Putin's refusing to pay them. The irony is, this is just the rumor, that some of the men are going to Africa to work for do the Wagner work there, but that some of them are going back to Russia. And the last thing Putin wants is the Wagner guys to go back to Russia because they did just try to overthrow him 6 or 7 weeks ago. So very interesting. All right, guys. That is it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Do go check out the auctions on the Discord, or just check out the Discord anyway. I always like to remind folks, I'm on the Discord all day long. I check it in all day. I answer pretty much everything that's people write me on Discord. You just have to make sure to do my the @ symbol me. So I know your comment is to me, but I pretty much answer every comment. So if you want to go on Discord and discuss with people, we've got a good Ukraine chat section. That's probably our most chatty section, but there's other sections as well. Feel free to go check it out. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time US. And then, like I said, Saturday, I am flying back to Chicago. I'll be there for a month. So Saturday, I will not be doing my usual Saturday show. Sunday, let's see. There's a possibility Sunday morning. Let me see. I'm going to see sort of, how I arrive on Saturday. Thank you, Carol. So we'll be skipping the Saturday show today, but otherwise I'm back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern time US. So join me then. All right. Thank you, Pedro, as well. All right, guys, have a good night. I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, mods. And thank you for being here. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. And you all